Happy Father's Day. So I'm so happy to be sitting here with my children and my father. And he has allowed me to ask him some questions just about him and his background. And I think there's a lot we're going to be able to learn from him. So on this Father's Day, Dad, I would like to start out by asking you, what's one of your favorite memories with your dad? Childhood memory that you remember.
We've done it a lot, but one particular fishing date I had with him. There was some people at work, a couple guys at work, and him. They never had met my father, so and we went fishing at Riggs, and it was a great time.
Good.
I really enjoyed it. Okay.
That's cool. So, as you think about what type of father he was, the different characteristics he had, which one of his characteristics or attributes or what about him inspired you the most and made you say that's the type of father I want to be?
I would say he was a family man. I mean, it was my mother and his kids. I remember he could have went off and made big money with this trucking company. He was an excellent truck driver, and he wouldn't do it because he would spend too much time away from his family.
Wow.
And that sort of resonated with me.
Wow.
So.
Okay, so now I'm going to take you back to when you was a child. So one of the reason that this was important to me is, just recently we celebrated Juneteenth. A lot took place in 2020. So I wanted my children to have just to know that they have, someone in their family that really lived in a different time than they did, and just to understand the progress that's been made, what life used to look like. And it may seem like it's so long ago that life looked the way that we read about in the textbooks, but when there's somebody living right next to you that experienced it, it helps you to see how recent it really happened. So where'd you go to? Okay, so I know you was born in 1950, so that was before the Civil Rights Movement. So tell me about elementary school. Where'd you go to elementary school?
We went to Newburgh Elementary School.
Okay.
And it was a different experience.
Were there any white children in your school?
It was all black.
What about the staff? The staff was
all black.
Okay.
It was in them days. It was just black.
Right.
You didn't have any connection with white. That was just where it was.
Okay. So did you ride a bus? Did you walk?
We walked.
So if you always hear we walked in the snow and
I did.
You did. You did. So if you had to estimate about how far of a walk was it from your home?
It was about a mile and a quarter.
Okay.
Somewhere in that area, yeah.
Okay, so we know our family has roots, correct me if I'm wrong, but in Clarksville, Tennessee, right?
Yes.
So, and do you remember visiting Clarksville when you were a child?
No, mostly my people were from Robertson County. That was included Springfield, Tennessee.
Springfield, okay.
Clarksville was another county, but.
Okay, but so you all visited Springfield often.
Right.
So was there going to Springfield, coming from Louisville, that I would assume was a more developed city, was there anything, I guess my point is Springfield was probably a little bit more rural. Was there anything that you knew you had to do different, being a young black boy, or places you knew you couldn't go, or things you knew you couldn't do?
Well, when we went there, we never did go to Springfield per se. We was out in the country. Our people was out in the country. We was one house where my grandmother lived. Then the next closest person to us was a mile and a half away. It was country, real rural. So we didn't go to Springfield per se.
So you didn't have to go into places where there was like colored bathrooms or colored water fountains, or
No, we didn't. A lot of that we missed out on. But it was everywhere at that time, but we just didn't go through with it. And I don't know.
So I
For
remember.
some reason,
Oh.
we just didn't go through that.
That's good. But you know, I mean, it's a reality. When you were a little boy, there were places you wouldn't have been able to eat at, use the bathroom at.
Exactly. It was one thing that really, we was getting ready to go to Tennessee, and we stopped at this little place. It was down on Oak, and we went there to get some food, Hamburg, but we went on to go to Tennessee. That's when there was no 65. We was going on Dixie Highway. That's the way we went to Tennessee.
Mm-hmm.
And we just sat there, and they wouldn't wait on us. I just never would forget that. My daddy always said, he don't say I remember that. I guess because if you were hungry, and they didn't bring, you couldn't get no food, you know, that really stuck on me. And just, at that time, as I got older, I knew what happened then. They just weren't gonna serve us. That's just the way it was back then.
Yeah. So I know you told. So I remember my great grandmother. She was older. From my earliest memories of her, I don't remember interacting with her much, but you've told me about conversations you had. I remember one time you said she would tell you all stories how she would hear the Ku Klux Klan rioting at night, and how scary that was. Do you remember me telling me about that?
Yeah. She would say they would get up out of the bed and run out to the fields, like cornfields or cotton fields or whatever, and hide. Because, you know, this was after the Civil War was over with, and they was, you know, supposedly free. And they would have to get up and run out to the cornfields or tobacco fields to hide from them.
Were they still working in those fields at the time? Like,
Yeah. Well, sharecroppers, yeah, they were. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha. You all, any questions you all have for Don so far?
What did you do for fun in Tennessee?
I mean, we had a ball. I mean, that was like Christmas. So when we got up to go to Tennessee, that was all that. We loved it. We played baseball. We fished. We just had a ball down there.
So no iPads and iPhones. You think of a question yet? Okay, ask him.
When you went fishing, how many fish did you normally catch, or how much were
We didn't catch a lot down there in Tennessee, but just the thought of just being able to go out and do it, that was the main thing, and we just enjoyed it. We had a ball doing it.
That's nice. Okay, so back to the schools. When do you remember the first time going to school with white people?
Well, it wasn't nothing. It didn't really affect me like you would think, you know. We went to Thomas Jefferson. There was white people there. Wasn't none at Newburgh. I went all the way to the 9th grade at Newburgh, and then I went to Thomas Jefferson, and they were there. And me, I didn't think nothing of it.
So there was never any moments that it was tense because of like the racism, because this was at the height when you went to high school. It would have been the height of the civil rights movement.
Yeah.
So there was no tension because of that.
Not really, you know. They act like they wanted to be. They didn't want to engage us. Nothing like with the civil rights movement or nothing like it. At Thomas Jefferson, they didn't engage us. I guess they knew better than that. Because at that time, you know, it was like they was being exposed to blacks themselves. And I went there in 67.
Well, you graduated in 69.
67. So I went there in 66 then, and 65 was the first graduation class at Thomas Jefferson. So they had never seen nothing like that, and we had never been through nothing like it. So there was a separation there, and you know, did nobody cross the line. Simple as that.
So let me ask you this. I know you were a very talented athlete. He tries to be modest, but he was a very talented basketball and football player. Was there separation there too?
No, well, you know, supposedly the camaraderie of sports, we got along with them. You
Okay.
know, that's we just did, and there was not too much friction going on there. There was some things that happened that we didn't like, but you know, we got along all right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I remember, okay, so being in college, 2008, when President Obama was elected president, it was a huge moment, right? We celebrated. It was just unbelievable to see. And it just and then there was a song, not a song you would know, but that was released by a rapper named Young Jeezy, and it was called My President is Black. And we just had such a sense of pride. And I have to wonder, with the accomplishments, although the civil rights movement was extremely difficult, so many sacrifices, lives lost, but with some of the accomplishments, did you all ever feel like a sense of pride, like going into school and holding your head up, like the laws are being passed, things are being changed?
Now, are you talking about school when Obama was there? Because I wasn't in school.
No, I'm just comparing the situation, how exciting that was for me being young and remembering that being a big deal.
Yeah.
So when blacks were able to vote, or do you remember any of those kind of milestone things in the civil rights movement and celebrating those? Because it was a big deal at the time.
Right. So I was young.
Right.
And I didn't really know what was going on, but I remember us getting the vote, and so all that happened right at a time when I was turning to be a young man. So, but I don't remember no celebration about it. But
Gotcha.
it's just something that happened.
Okay.
It's that thing.
One other thing I wanted to ask you before my last question, and before I give the kids another opportunity, you said, where did you go to college? You went to junior college for a while. Where was that?
That was in North Carolina, Gastonia, North Carolina.
I vaguely remember you being somewhere, and you telling me you were somewhere as a young adult or an older teenager, and a white man was extremely disrespectful to you. I don't know if you said you were in Georgia or North. Do you remember that?
Not really. I know that we had some incidents. There was some incidents. We didn't think nothing about it. We let them roll off our back and went on. But we was in North Carolina, and we was trying to get out, and we'd been in this bus for hours, and a couple of them, maybe not me, jumped off the bus and had to use the bathroom, so they couldn't get in there, and they went around the back and used the bathroom. This white man come out real aggressive and ran us off the property. I was wondering